talk about a bit is some of the other issues we have, and walk through some amendments to the zoning ordinance that I thought you would find interesting. I've just got a little bit of information on each of these. Bill Gore, our wonderful zoning director, is working these issues through the system. May not have all the answers to the questions that you may have, but I'll be happy to do my best and refer you to Bill for others. But I want to thank you on behalf of North Charleston for being here today. That shows your interest in North Charleston. On behalf of Realtors, we see a lot of our wonderful development partners here with us today as well. And personally, I appreciate that interest. You know, it's not always been easy to be interested in North Charleston. We have to be frank about that. But we have a focus today on sustainability, redevelopment, urban infill, and making North Charleston what it should be as the hub of the Low Country. There's going to be an incredibly exciting announcement later on this month about a nationwide honor that North Charleston is going to get that I just cannot, I wish I could tell you about, but it will be something that will show where we've come from, how far we've come with the development partners we've had, Moisette Company, Ion Beach Company. I see Steve Bland here, and I'm sure there are several of you who have done wonderful projects here that I'm not naming, but North Charleston has come a long way, and we have nowhere to go but even further forward. So I thank you very much for your interest and show by you being here today. A little bit of statistics on our permitting from the past year to this year. So far this year, for the first 9 months of this year, we've had 34.9 million in residential permits pulled. Contrast that to, and this is the 12 months of last year, 64 million in the 12 months for 2008. Construction value of commercial permits, 56.8 million so far this year, again for the 9 months ended September, 8 months I should say. Contrast that to 175 million for the 12 months of last year. So the economy affects us all, but that still is some robust permitting activity. I think we all have to agree. The permit numbers, 333 residential, 718 residential remodel. Contrasting again last year, 450 for residential new construction, 760 for remodeling. That's not too far off. New commercial, 35 last year, excuse me, this year, contrasted with 93. All for all last year, 189 remodel upfits, contrasting again with the 12 months of last year at 242 permits. So we're not doing too terribly bad. We're pleased with that. Moving on to comprehensive plan update and some zoning changes. You may recall we did our comprehensive plan update, which we adopted not this past summer, but the summer before last. This is the future land use map that came out of that comprehensive plan update process. Now we've set about implementing that comp plan update through zoning ordinance changes. I'll move through some of the more significant ones that we are working on right now. We've already adopted some tree preservation changes, and what we tried to do there, we I think define the definition of compromise, because some of the tree business folks I've talked to aren't real happy, and some of the development folks aren't real happy, and some of the council members aren't real happy. So I think we probably found that reasonable compromise. But what we tried to do was streamline the development process by not requiring quite so much effort and not requiring some of the things that might be seen as excessive in the way of tree measurement and delineation protection, while also trying to protect those native species of trees that we find are more important to protect in the development process in North Charleston. So we adopted that ordinance, gosh, I think back in early summer. If you have seen it, please feel free to give us further comments. I've told the same thing to the tree businesses, that if we find things that aren't workable or we need to modify, that's what the laws are all about, is to be modified as experience dictates. Natural resources. The next one is adding maximum impervious surface percentage standard to the residential zoning districts. We have that in the commercial district right now. What we're doing there is looking at whether it makes sense in the vein of the sustainability, resource preservation, resource restoration that is our focus in the old parts of North Charleston, to determine whether it makes sense to have the pervious surface maximum limitation in the residential areas as well as the commercial areas. So that's under study right now. We will, no question, have lots of public input, and we request that from you as that moves along. Creating traditional neighborhood zoning district, we have completed that. Now what does that mean? As you know, we have minimum lot size requirements for new subdivisions, 6,000 square feet if I remember correctly. We have focused on in the past, as you would expect, the new development standards, new subdivisions, new building, new creation of raw land, turning it into developable area. What this does is look back at the areas that are traditional existing neighborhoods in the city where we want to focus more of the development energy, infill, greater density, transit-friendly, sustainable redevelopment. And this created some flexibility in those old neighborhoods, the traditional neighborhoods that allow for smaller lot sizes, encourages redevelopment in the smaller areas. We hope will encourage garden and cluster developments that match the existing development patterns in the older neighborhoods in the center of the city. That's been adopted as well. We are looking at developing and adopting a citywide riparian buffer ordinance. As you know, in the Ashley River Historic District, there is a riparian buffer that was originally started as a visual buffer for the plantations on the Ashley River. Yes, North Charleston did that first. We did a lot earlier than any of the other local governments in here. North Charleston developed that visual buffer to preserve the beautiful resources of the area that are embodied in those plantations on the Ashley River. The Charleston Harbor Project Special Area Management Plan recognizes or recommends that we adopt riparian buffers to protect other bodies of water than the major rivers, streams, other small water bodies. So we are studying that. Once again, we have to maintain a balance between assisting development, assisting redevelopment, encouraging, in fact, redevelopment, but also not harming the natural environment. So this is not going to be an enormous buffer that takes all the land value away. We just can't do things like that, but we have to strike that balance. The next item, improving development and design standards along the commercial corridors. What that means is to extend our design corridors, the overlay districts that we have, Highway 78, College Park, University Boulevard, Dorchester Road, into the Rivers Avenue corridor and the other major highways that we have where we do not have those corridors at this point. Trying to extend the benefits that we've gained from those overlay districts and those design corridors to the other major arteries of the city to achieve the same result. More consistency in architecture, more consistency in access, signage consistency, and those sort of things that bring the aesthetics up to everybody's preferred standards. Next is to develop and adopt the Noisette Community Overlay District. This is the implementation of the Noisette Master Plan for the 3,000 acres surrounding the naval base. We have adopted a lot of the principles in the comp plan update that we did, as I said, over a year and a half ago now. This is implementing some of those concepts, or as many of those as we can, into the zoning ordinance. So it will cover the 3,000 acre master plan area for the Noisette community, as was provided to us by the Noisette company at the beginning of that development. Perform a small area study for Rivers Avenue and the I-26 corridor. This goes along with the transfer of development rights involving the Air Force Base that I'll get to a few slides later. But this is a companion to that program, Transfer of Development Rights Program, and it is to encourage land use patterns, density, and transportation friendliness in those corridors. Once again, infill redevelopment to encourage the density to go near the major centers, Northwoods Mall, Trident Technical College, the Center Point area, etc., to encourage the use of mass transit, to discourage the reliance on vehicles, personal vehicles for so much travel, to encourage infill density redevelopment rather than the expansion on undeveloped property. Develop and adopt the Noisette Creek Preserve Overlay District. As I showed you that beautiful picture of the Greenbelts program, Noisette Creek and Philbin Creek to a lesser degree are just incredible natural resources that you would not expect to see in the heart of Old North Charleston, but they are there. We need to protect them. There will be some standards that will preserve the water from runoff, preserve stormwater issues, allow for trying to restore native plant species rather than the intrusive non-native species that have come to pass. We intend to have a trail system that will go all the way from the Cooper River to the headwaters of Noisette Creek at Rivers Avenue. This overlay district will help to accomplish that. There will be development in that area, new development in that area. There are undeveloped parcels that the city acquired along Noisette Creek, behind the railroad tracks along Bexley Street, some down South Ray, including the area of the old city transfer site that we want to encourage careful development, but development nevertheless. Mayor Sony has said in the vein, everybody has the right to be able to see the water, to be able to see and live on the marsh. So we want to balance that type of development with preservation of our natural resources.